One kiss, one lie, one moment that changed everything. My fiancé went to prison, my reputation shattered, and my entire life fell apart. This is my confession.
I still remember the exact shade of the lights at that party. Warm gold, soft enough to make everyone look beautiful, bright enough to hide the cracks in my life that were already forming. If I close my eyes now, I can still hear the music, the laughter, the clinking glasses. I can still feel the weight of my fiancé Michael's hand on the small of my back as he guided me through the crowd, proud, happy, unaware of the storm that was about to swallow us whole. I often wonder if fate gives warnings. If there were signs that night, tiny tremors before the earthquake. Maybe there were. Maybe I ignored them. Maybe I wanted to ignore them. Because the truth is, the destruction of my life didn't happen in one moment. It happened in a series of choices, impulsive, stupid, cowardly choices, that I made. And now, years later, I live in the ruins of those choices, trying to understand how a single kiss, a single lie, could unravel everything I loved. But it did. And this is the story of how. It started with something small. It always does. Michael had been stressed for weeks. Work was suffocating him, wedding planning was overwhelming me, and somewhere between the florist appointments and the guest list arguments, we had stopped listening to each other. At the party, he made a joke, a harmless joke, really, about how I was always dramatic. It wasn't meant to hurt. But it did. And instead of telling him that, I snapped back. Something sharp. Something petty. Something that made his jaw tighten. We argued in whispers at first. Then in hushed tones. Then in full sentences that carried just enough emotion to make people glance our way. I remember thinking, why is he being like this? Why can't he just understand me? I didn't think, why am I reacting like this? Why am I letting this ruin our night? No. I was too wrapped in my own irritation. At some point, he walked away to get a drink, muttering, I can't do this right now. And that was the moment, the exact moment, when I could have saved my life. I could have followed him. I could have apologized. I could have taken a breath. Instead, I turned away. And walked straight into the biggest mistake I would ever make. I don't know why I did it. I wish I had a reason, something logical, something that made sense. But the truth is uglier. I was angry, impulsive, and stupid. I wanted to feel wanted. I wanted to feel in control. I wanted to hurt him the way I felt hurt. So when a stranger, tall, charming, smiling like he owned the world, leaned in and said, rough night, I didn't walk away. I flirted back. I let him touch my arm. And when he leaned in, I didn't stop him. His lips touched mine for barely a second, a stupid, meaningless second, before I pulled away, guilt slamming into me like a truck. But that second was enough. Because Michael saw it. I heard his voice before I saw him. A sound I had never heard from him before, something between shock and betrayal. What the hell are you doing? I froze. The stranger, Brandon, stepped back. Michael's face twisted, hurt bleeding into rage. And in that moment, terrified, ashamed, desperate, I made the worst decision of my life. I lied. He forced me, I said. He grabbed me. I didn't want it. I don't know why I said it. I don't know why those words came out. Maybe I thought it would save me. Maybe I thought it would undo what I had done. But lies don't undo mistakes. They multiply them. Michael didn't hesitate. He didn't question me. He didn't stop to think. He lunged at Brandon. I screamed. People shouted. The music stopped. Bodies rushed forward. But Michael was already hitting him. Fury, betrayal, heartbreak pouring out of him in every punch. I remember grabbing his arm, crying, begging him to stop. I remember Brandon's friends pulling Michael away. I remember the blood. The chaos. The horror. And I remember thinking, what have I done? But it was too late. The damage was done. And the consequences were already on their way. What I didn't know, what I couldn't have imagined, was that the entire party was under surveillance. Not discreet security cameras tucked into corners. No. Full coverage, high-definition cameras installed by the event organizers because the venue belonged to Brandon's father, a man who didn't take chances with liability or reputation. Every moment was recorded. The flotation. The kiss. The lie. The assault. All of it. And those recordings would become the weapon that destroyed us. We left the party in silence. Michael's hands were shaking. Mine were too. I wanted to tell him the truth. I wanted to confess. But every time I opened my mouth, fear choked me. What would he do if he knew? Would he leave me? Would he hate me? Would he tell everyone? So I stayed quiet. And that silence became the rope that eventually hung both of us. Brandon, the one I kissed, turned out to be the son of a wealthy businessman. The kind of man who had connections everywhere. The kind of man who didn't let things go. He filed charges. Assault. Wrongful accusation. Defamation. And suddenly, our lives weren't ours anymore. They belonged to lawyers, judges, police officers, and the media. The courtroom was cold. I remember sitting there, hands clasped, heart pounding, listening to Brandon's lawyer describe me as manipulative, deceitful, malicious. They painted Michael as violent, unstable, dangerous. And then they played the footage. The screen lit up. There I was, laughing, leaning in, flirting. There was Brandon, smiling, relaxed, not forcing anything. There was the kiss, initiated by me. There was Michael, walking up, seeing it, breaking. And then there was me, lying. He forced me. The courtroom went silent. Michael stared at the screen like he was watching his life collapse in real time. His face drained of color. His shoulders slumped. His eyes, those warm, kind eyes, filled with something I had never seen before. Not anger. Not hatred. Just devastation. He didn't look at me. Not once. And in that moment, I knew I had lost him forever. I watched Michael take the fall for a lie I created. I watched him look at the floor as the judge sentenced him. I watched the man I loved be taken away. Because of me. When they convicted me of wrongful accusation, I didn't cry. I felt numb. Empty. Like my body was just a shell and everything inside had already died. People whispered about me everywhere I went. Friends stopped calling. Relatives avoided me. My parents looked at me with a mixture of disappointment and heartbreak that I still can't bear to remember. And then came the civil defamation suit. Brandon wanted compensation, a lot of it. His lawyers were sharks. Mine were barely staying afloat. We lost. My parents had to take a second mortgage on their house. My father's hands shook when he signed the papers. My mother cried quietly in the car afterward. I wanted to disappear. I wanted to stop existing. Because the weight of what I had done was crushing me. Months later, I visited Michael in prison. He looked thinner. Harder. Older. He didn't smile when he saw me. He didn't speak at first. And when he finally did, his voice was cold. I saw the footage. I broke. I told him everything, the anger, the impulsiveness, the panic, the fear. I cried until my throat hurt. I begged him to forgive me. He listened. And then he said something I will never forget. You didn't just destroy my life. You destroyed yours too. He wasn't angry. He wasn't cruel. He was just tired. And that hurt more than anything else. I live alone now. I work a small job that barely pays the bills. My parents are still paying off the mortgage they took because of me. Michael was released eventually, but he never contacted me again. I don't blame him. I wouldn't contact me either. Sometimes I see him in my dreams, the way he looked before everything fell apart. Happy. Loving. Proud. And then I wake up. And remember that the woman he loved doesn't exist anymore. She died the night I kissed a stranger. The woman who remains is someone else, someone who carries regret like a shadow, someone who knows exactly how fragile life is, someone who understands that one moment can destroy everything. People think life is ruined by big tragedies. But sometimes, it's ruined by a single choice. A single lie. A single moment of weakness. I destroyed my life not because I was evil, but because I was careless. Because I didn't think. Because I let emotion control me. Because I was too afraid to tell the truth when it mattered. And now, I live with the consequences. Every day. Every hour. Every breath. This is my story. Not because I want sympathy. Not because I want forgiveness. But because I want anyone to understand how easy it is to lose everything. And how hard it is to live afterward.